our meeting today to hear testimony on the threat posed by homegrown terrorists to our nation's military communities.
As a retired military officer, I quite frankly find it frustrating that we're playing politics on threat assessment. We should be able to identify the enemy, know who they are, and call them for what they are, and it's violent, radical, Islamic extremism, and be able to identify that. We owe that to our troops to identify the enemy and make sure that they are aware of it to protect them.
Secretary Stockton, are we at war with violent Islamist extremism?
No, sir. We are at war with Al-Qaeda, its
Okay, I
affiliates
understand
and
that.
adherents.
My question is violent Islamist extremism at war with us?
No, sir. We are being attacked by Al-Qaeda and its allies.
Is Al-Qaeda, can it be described as being an exponent of violent Islamist extremism?
Al-Qaeda are murderers with ideological agenda.
That wasn't my question. My question was, is Al-Qaeda acting out violent Islamist extremism?
Al-Qaeda is a violent organization dedicated to overthrowing the values that we intend
So
to
is it
advance.
yes or no?
Can I hear the question again? I'll make it as clear as I can. We are not at war with Islam.
I didn't ask
And
that.
it is
I
not...
did not ask that, sir. I asked whether we're at war with violent Islamist extremism. That's my question.
No, we're at war with Al-Qaeda and its affiliates.
Al-Qaeda, how does Al-Qaeda define itself? Are they dedicated to violent Islamist extremism?
Al-Qaeda would love to convince Muslims around the world that the United States is at war with Islam.
I didn't
That's
say
a prime
that.
propaganda
Sir.
tool, and I'm not going to aid and abet that effort
my
to
question is,
advance their propaganda
is there
goals.
a difference between Islam and violent Islamist extremism?
Sir, with great respect, I don't believe it's helpful to frame our adversary as Islamic with any set of qualifiers that we might add, because we are not at war with Islam.
I understand that. I never said we were at war with Islam. One of the questions we're trying to deal with is the radicalization of Islam, is the radicalization of Islamic youth. And if we can't distinguish between violent Islamist extremism and Islam, then all this stuff about behavioral indicators doesn't mean anything. Well, let me ask you this question. Is it a behavioral indicator to put on your card that you're a soldier of Allah?
A behavioral indicator that you have a copy of Inspire magazine on your desk.
That's not my question. My question is it a behavioral indicator to put on your card that you are a soldier of Allah, as Major Hassan did?
We have behavioral indicators now that enable our personnel, our supervisors, to focus on detecting indicators of violent extremism that reflect the lessons learned from Fort Hood.
Okay, is that a lesson learned? That if you put soldier of Allah on your card, that you ought to follow up and investigate that?
We're training our supervisors to follow up on appropriate indicators and exercise the leadership they need in order to provide for effective reporting and
Do you agree with the statement of someone representing the Department of Defense on the weekend after the shooting that it would be a greater tragedy to lose our program of diversity than what had occurred?
Well, let me go back to something Chairman King said. I was trained up by Senator Moynihan. There was nobody less politically correct than Senator Moynihan. I follow the truth wherever it takes me, and I strongly support the programs of the Department of Defense that focus on Al-Qaeda and behavioral indicators. This is not about political correctness. This is about defeating our adversary.
Sir, I would disagree with you that it may not be about political correctness. We are here talking about the fact that we now have to have behavioral indicators. I agree with that. But my question is, if someone gives inflammatory remarks, as did Major Hassan, in an open setting, if he has on his card that he was a soldier of Allah, it seems to me to be beyond common sense to think those are not behavioral indicators. So my question is, if I'm a member of the military today and I see those two events or those two circumstances, would it be appropriate for me to report those as behavioral indicators? Now, that's not a question of whether or not you're being politically correct, sir. I'm asking to answer that specific question. If I'm a soldier and ask you that question, what do you tell me?
Inflammatory rhetoric of the sort associated with Major Hassan that needs to be reported, and our officers are trained up now to report on that behavior.
I thank you, and I appreciate that.
Okay, the gentleman's time has expired.